Hey everyone, Rob here from Daisho Tactical. Today I'm going to be talking about my rules for zeroing your rifle. I teach a lot of carbine courses in my day job, and novice and beginner shooters will really struggle zeroing their rifle sometimes. So I made up these 4 rules to help them do that and hopefully get it done quicker. So my first rule is check natural point of aim, or NPA, before every string of fire. What is natural point of aim? Well, when you're sitting behind the rifle, when you're proned out, it's the way that your body naturally points that rifle. Now, if you check it beforehand and you confirm that your body is naturally pointing the rifle at the target you're aiming at, everything's fine. The problem is if you don't check it and there's a difference between the two, you're going to be chasing your sights because you don't know if you're correcting your optic or you're correcting your NPA. Basically, it looks like this. If I'm trying to shoot a target that's straight down range, but my NPA, the way I'm proned out behind the rifle, is causing the rifle to push this way, your impacts are going to end up somewhere between these 2 points, okay? Because your dot is here, but your body is pushing the shots that way. So what does that look like on the target? Well, it's going to look something like this. If this is what I'm shooting at, I put my dot right here, and my impacts end up over here. Now my NPA being screwed up is what's causing the shots to go off to the left. But I'm going to look at that and say, well, I'm just going to make a dope adjustment on my optic when I move 4 clicks to the right or whatever, and I'm going to assume I fixed the problem, and then my next string of fire ends up over here. Well, why did it shift that far over? Because now my NPA is good just by dumb luck, and I put a 4-click dope adjustment that didn't have to be there. In short, if you don't confirm that your natural point of aim is on before your string of fire, you have no idea if what you're observing is because the zero is off or because your natural point of aim is off. So we always have to check that before we start. I'll go into it in more detail in a future video. Probably my next one I'll do fundamentals of marksmanship. But just understand you've got to check NPA before every string of fire when zeroing. Rule number 2 is we don't make any zero adjustments until we've stacked at least 2 groups on top of each other. We like to think that we're perfect and the optics screwed up, or the barrel or the gun or the ammo is screwed up because everybody's got an ego and we think we're amazing. The reality is we're the weak part in the equation. Okay, we're the variable. Sometimes we didn't get enough sleep last night, too much whiskey last night, too much coffee this morning, too much Mountain Dew, whatever, we're sick. All these things are variable that cause us to shoot a little bit different. So I'm always really hesitant to change that zero. Oftentimes people will do their first string of fire, they're trying to hit that, and the first string of fire will be, let's say it's over here. And they're gonna go, okay, we're gonna go, let's see, down 4 and right 6. And that'll put us right here. And their next group out, they assume it's going to be right here, and all of a sudden it's, I don't know, way over here. It's because you're the variable. You haven't warmed up yet. You don't really know where are you really shooting. You got to get more than one group on the paper. So like I said, I like putting several groups. When I do this, more often than not, if I'm dealing with a student who has a rifle that had been zeroed at the previous year's qual, and now they're doing this year's qual, and we always check zero right off the bat, they're warming up, their first group's over here. They always want to make those adjustments. I say, don't do it. Don't do that until you stack 2 groups on top of each other. Inevitably, the next group is probably, I don't know, over here somewhere. And then the third group is here. And the fourth group is here. The reality is their rifle was properly zeroed all the time. They just needed to be a little more patient when they saw this first group and not jump out and make that zero adjustment. When you wait to stack 2 groups on top of each other before you make an adjustment, you'll know that that's a true adjustment you have to make and not just a variable of you shooting differently from one string to the next. Rule number 3 is I always do the math for whatever adjustment I'm going to make on that zero, and then make sure that mathematically it moves where it's supposed to move. Once again, we're the variable. The optic is probably correct 99.9% of the time. Yes, optics can break and they can be screwed up from the factory, but it's very rare. So this rifle, for example. So let's say I'm zeroing this dot, okay, my red dot, which a holographic sight. It's an EOTech, okay. Now you got to look up what the adjustment is on your optic. Most red dots are half MOA per click. They do vary a little bit. Sometimes it's on the side of the optic, sometimes it's under the cap. Just Google it, you can find it. This particular optic doesn't say it anywhere on it, but I know it's a half MOA adjustment per click. So what does that mean? Well, 1 MOA is a minute of angle, okay? It's just a measurement of angle. And 1 MOA at 100 yards is 1.047 inches. But for our purposes, we can get rid of this and just say it's 1 inch. That's going to be accurate enough for what we're doing. So 1 MOA is essentially 1 inch at 100 yards. So each adjustment of this optic, which is a half MOA adjustment, is a half inch at 100 yards. Okay? But we're going to be zeroing at 100 yards. We're going to be zeroing, let's say, at 50 yards, because that's what my department uses, and that's what, honestly, it's a really common zero for AR-15s, is what they call a 50 to 100 yard zero. We'll get into it more later. Just understand it's a 50 yard zero. So if each click is a half inch at 100 yards, what is it at 50? Well, it's half of that again. It's 1/4 inch at 50 yards. Okay? So what does that mean on our target? What's that going to look like? Well, here's what I would do. I prefer to have a zeroing target that has some sort of grid on it, so I can see, you know, the half inch, the 1/4 inch, the 1 inch, whatever. The one I use typically is a big bullseye with 1 inch kind of lines in between each area. But you can just use it with a ruler, and it's just as effective. So let's say I'm trying to hit in here, and my impacts are up here. Okay, and let's say I measured this out. And let's say this is, we got to go 5 inches down, and we got to go 4 inches over. Okay, well, what does that equal in adjustment? So since we know each click is a 1/4 inch, we have to go down 5 inches. So that's going to be 20 clicks down. We got to go 4 inches over. That's going to be 16 clicks to the right. So let's say I make those adjustments. Okay, and my next string of fire goes over here. I'm going to assume EOTech, you know, L3 Technology did their job right, and this optic tracks correctly, because 99.9% of the time they do. I'm going to assume that I screwed up somewhere, and I'm not going to make that adjustment back. I'm going to do another string of fire, and more often than not, that next string of fire is going to be right here. Okay, more often than not, the math tends to win. So I always, when I do make adjustments, I do them mathematically what they should be based on what the adjustments are on the optic. Now understand that works great for red dots because it's exact. It tells you what it should be. But it's not so easy with backup iron sights. For example, I got Magpul Pro backup iron sights on this rifle. Okay, here's my rear sight, here's my front sight. How much adjustment I get for each click on these iron sights is going to vary based on how far apart they are in the rifle, which is going to vary from rifle to rifle, and depending on how much rail space you got, and et cetera, how you set it up. So I can't tell you exactly how many clicks is going to equal 2 inches or whatever. So when you have a setup with backup iron sights like this, you just kind of cut a trial and error and figure it out. My last rule is I can't put a 1 MOA zero on a 4 MOA shooter's gun. I just can't do it. What does that mean? Well, when I first have a shooter shoot their first string of the day, their first zeroing string, I always have them do 5 shots. Why? I don't really care where it goes so much as I want to see what kind of shooter they are. I want to see how tightly they can put those bullets together. It's always got to be a minimum of 5 shots. Why? Because a 3-shot group is only 30% accurate, because dumb luck pushes as many bullets into groups as out. Everybody's got that group they can put on paper that is just really, really tight. Okay, and that's the one they put on Instagram and show what an amazing shooter they are. But in reality, that's not how they usually shoot. And if they had done a 5-shot group, it would have probably been something like this. It would have widened it out. You need a lot of shots, a lot more than 3, to really figure out where a shooter's at. 10 is ideal, 10, 8, something like that. But just to save ammo, I do 5. So that shooter gives me a 5-shot group like that. I know we got about a 4 MOA shooter, which is fine. A shooter like this, though, I'm never going to get them to be stacking bullets on their zero. It's just not going to happen. So their zero is going to be somewhere around in here, but that's okay. Okay, that's what we call accurate, not precise. What's the difference between them? Well, something is accurate. If I'm aiming here, accuracy is it's equidistant around that point I'm aiming at. Precise means it's really close together. Okay? I prefer to have accuracy and precision. Okay, I prefer to have all my bullets not only where I want them to go, but in a really tight group. But I can deal with not being that precise. I can't deal with not being that accurate. I can't have shooters with their zero all over the place. If they're here and they have a 4 MOA zero, that's fine. They're going to get better as time goes on. As they get better as a shooter, it's going to get tighter and tighter, and they're going to become a better shooter. It's just got to be accurate over where they're aiming. So that's all I got on my rules for zeroing rifles. I always tell my students, go easy on yourself. Don't have too unreasonable an expectation of how you can shoot. We're all on this journey together. We're all trying to get better. Lord knows I've become a better shooter over my career, and you will too if you just keep focusing on your fundamentals. So remember, always check your natural point aim before each string of fire. Don't move sights until you stack groups on top of each other. When you do move sights, move them mathematically where they should go. And finally, you're not going to put a 1 MOA 0 on a 4 MOA shooter's gun. If you like my content, please like, subscribe, hit the little bell. You guys know how YouTube works. You can also find me on Rumble. Better yet, if you want to support my content, go to my website, daishotactical.com, and buy some merchandise. I sell a variety of things, mostly different sling models in a variety of colors. Thanks for watching.